The new Sony ZV-E10 is an awesome little camera. I have had a tremendous amount of fun playing around with this camera, using it for video, recording even my vlogs for my Being a Creator series, and getting ready to travel with it for the first time. So there's a lot of fun and amazing features inside this camera. Depending on if you're new to video as well, one of those great features is the bokeh button, the background defocus button, which really puts the camera in what's called an aperture priority mode to say when someone presses this button, go ahead and switch into an aperture priority mode. You press it again and it goes into clear, and so you can see the background. So if you're new to video, that's actually super helpful. But I have a little bit of some qualms with it as to why I actually don't use it. And even when we went through the settings menu, you saw that I reprogrammed that button on the camera so that it goes to my volume levels for my microphone. So when I'm doing my videos, I can quickly and on the fly make sure I'm adjusting the audio, because to me, that's more important. And it's something that I access a whole bunch. But with the background defocus button, if you're trying to maybe put that in a different position, it's really only a few other buttons that you can actually use and reprogram that to on the camera. But for me, I just completely don't use it. But I want to break down why this may not be super helpful if you are only rocking the kit lens. So on this kit lens, you'll see that it has a variable aperture of f3.5 to 5.6. Now, if you're new to learning cameras and all that, don't worry, I'm gonna break this down for you so it's super simple. It means that between that range of numbers, that is going to determine if you have a blurry background or not, or how much is in focus or whatever. That also will impact your light as well as how bright the image is. If you're usually running on full auto or some variation of an auto, like a shutter or aperture priority, or even like auto ISO, even that will pretty much take care of the exposure needs to make sure that your image is as bright or as dark as it needs to be. When you're trying to use this background defocus button, it may not be extremely helpful because the camera, or excuse me, the lens is going to be obedient to that range of numbers. So it's not constant. It won't sit still. On the other hand, you take a look at a lens like this 10 to 18 millimeter lens, it has what's called a constant aperture. Well, how do you get a blurry background on a kit lens then? It's only really a couple ways that you can try to pull this off. Now, if you're in a small space, a home office studio like you see here, you're not going to see a very, very good example of that. What you can do is, depending on how close you are to the lens, then at that point, you'll notice that more of the background starts to become a little bit blurry. But what if you need some space? You don't have any wiggle room, unfortunately, when it comes to indoors, even with using the bokeh button. But if you're outdoors, let's say you're at a park or you're at an event, some kind of a space that has a lot going on behind you, a lot of space, it has a deeper depth of field, you can get a blurry background because of how much is behind you. And so it starts to kind of, blow that out for you. However, it's not really helpful if you want to be close, you're in a small space, and you still want a blurry background. The background defocus button or that bokeh button is not going to help you in that instance. So no matter what lenses that you're looking at, if that's something that's very important to you, you want to make sure that you're taking a look at a lens like the Sigma 16mm f1.4. And to get this blurry background, you at least want a lens, especially on these APS-C sensor size cameras that are like your ZV-E10s that have a sensor size that kind of look like this here. You want something that's at an f2.0 or lower. Even though you can, kind of get away with it on other ones at f2.8, you really want to do f2.0. So you may be asking yourself, what about the Sony 16mm f2.8 lens? Will that give me the blurry background? Well, let's take a look. All right, so here we are on the Sony 16mm f2.8 lens. It doesn't have stabilization in the body, so if you wanted to get access to that, you'd need to put it in active stabilization. But just so we can keep a pretty wide angle, I'll try to be pretty still here. Just take a look at that bookshelf over there. We're at f2.8. Actually, let me turn off the background defocus now. So we're at f2.8. We have the ISO set to 800 and 1/50th of a shutter speed, which is these numbers here. So that f2.8 is your aperture, 1/50th for the shutter speed, and then the ISO is ranging between 640 and 800. We're leaving that set to auto right now so that the camera can make decisions for us. But let's pay attention to that bookshelf, hit that background defocus button, and it says that it's doing the background defocus, but nothing is happening because we were already at the lowest aperture possible on this lens. Now, if I hit it again, it will switch to like an 5.6 or somewhere thereabout. But that's usually just to, again, make it clear so that you can see, increasing the depth in the background blur. But if we change the apertures ourselves here, we'll see that same kind of feature happen. Obviously, because the ISO is adjusting as well, it takes it a few seconds to just usually catch up, or at least a second or two. But so the background to focus button is really just to get you so that you can get a blurry background. So if you aren't familiar with what to do with changing the aperture, then it will help you. So the background defocus button is actually pretty nifty, especially if you're just learning your camera settings and all those different things. I actually did a video on how to learn your camera and learning some of the best settings and figure it out for your space so that it looks right for you without running in fully automatic. So if you want to check out that video, make sure you click on the video on the screen to check that out. And we also are going to be doing a video on some of the best lenses to choose. So if you want to get that blurry background and you just don't know between the 16mm lenses that we talked about, what else is available for your ZV-E10, check out the video on the screen. You're going to love it.